And we are live. We all got the look. It's so true. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Q&A with the East of the Mountains team. This is really exciting. My name is Beth Barrett. I'm the artistic director here at SIFF, and we've just had the world premiere of East of the Mountains. And we are here with director S.J. Chiro, producer Jane Charles, cinematographer Sebastien Scandiuzzi, and actor Annie Gonzalez. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here.
So I want to start with, start at the very beginning, so to speak. How did you all pull this project together? Because I know it's based on a novel by David Guterson, and so I'd love to hear how it went from the novel to the film we've just all seen.
Yeah, so from the beginning, and actually this happened very quickly. I'll keep this short. In the life of a feature film, because feature films can take many years to make. So we made this in a few years because there was a great novel by David Guterson. I was introduced to David Guterson by a friend, and we got together and decided to make the film together. And in reading the book and knowing that this was very much a film based on landscape, it was a character study. SJ came to mind right away, and I've always wanted to work with her. We've met quite a few years ago at 9 Pound Hammer at Ben Kasulki's birthday party, before she was making Lane 1974. And just had some questions about optioning a book and that kind of thing. Anyway, we got together with SJ to say, is this something that you would want to do? And jump in, SJ.
And, I said, I might take a different take if you're interested in my take. And I said, thank you so much for your time. I'm so gratified that you thought of me. And I left the interview thinking, well, I'm sure they're looking at a lot of people, but Jane called me the next day and said, let's make a film. So it was really wonderful, very welcoming.
It's incredible to think that it happened that fast, and because as you say, Jane, sometimes it can take many, many years, especially when you're optioning something from a book into a screenplay and then into a film. I would love to hear, SJ, because this is a film that you did not write, and so how do you, Lane 1974 was autobiographical and was very from you. So how did you look at this and say, okay, here's this piece of art. How am I going to put, what take am I going to have on it?
Yeah. Adaptation is very interesting, and I've done a lot of adaptations. The way that I work is to kind of absorb, to take in. And luckily we had the author here, so I could talk to him. I could talk to Tom Skerritt, also, who had been thinking about this piece for quite a long time. Of course, we had the actual book and the screenwriter and Eastern Washington, which is a huge, huge part of the film. So taking in all these things and reading articles, just thinking about things and feeling everything, and then kind of putting it through me and saying, where do I feel the spine of this story is? How do I want to approach this? And luckily I had really wonderful collaborators who could support me and also, question me. And, this is the nature of collaboration, because this was very, very collaborative as a film. Of course, every film is, because you're working with a lot of people no matter what. But this one, more than any, I think, was really a lot of people coming in to make something beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So as you were, pulling all of this together, did you always have Tom in mind for the lead?
Well, yes. The package came with Tom. So the package that Jane offered me came with Tom, and I was not sad about that at all. Of course, he's a big draw. Who wouldn't want to work with Tom Skerritt? You know, he's such a titan of the acting field, and so that was lovely. So I knew that was going to the film was going to be about him. You know, I knew that he was going to be the soul and the center of the film from the word go.
Yeah.
And what an icon. I mean, Tom, this is his first leading role. You know, he's been a part of so many great ensemble films, Alien, Steel Magnolias, what's a Tom Cruise?
He was even in Harold and Maude.
Yeah, I mean, so many. And he was in almost every scene in this film. Yeah. So it was a great pinnacle film for him, I think. And he's got a really amazing following too. And he's so beloved, you know, not just in Seattle, but we meet people all the time that love Tom, have been following his career. And so we're excited for him to have this film.
Yeah, it really is. It's a terrific role for him. And he goes into it with such gusto. It really is incredible. Because, you know, as you say, he's been in a lot of ensemble. He's been one of the great character actors of our time. And for him to take on a lead role, not just a lead role, but a lead role that does a lot of solitary work within that, I think it's really great. And I can't wait to talk to him on Thursday about that at the tribute, which is great. But Annie, I'd love to hear how you came on board.
Well, I got the audition or the request to audition, sent a self-tape. I loved the script. I read the work, and I thought it was a really beautiful story that I hadn't seen before. And how it ended up coming to this kind of platonic familial love story at the end with Tom's character finding his way back to new life and finding something else worth living for. And it was I was like, oh, heck yeah. And then I met SJ and talked to Jade, and I was like, oh, come on, this is like a dream come true to be able to star in my first film ever.
Yeah. Oh,
and
wow.
to work with these two freaking powerhouse people. It was a dream come true. And then to go to Seattle and to shoot somewhere else, like, I loved it. It was such a wonderful experience.
SJ, I mean, we'd been looking for the vet and had gone out to a couple of other actors, and really SJ had a specific type of, you know, sparkle and actor that she had in mind. And then SJ actually found Annie. It's a great story.
Yeah, well, I was following, there was somebody that I was interested in, they weren't available, and then I just went to check them out on Instagram, and they had a friend, this friend who was so vivacious, even on Instagram, and I was like, who is this? And it was Annie, and I checked her out, and I said to Nike, who is our casting director, can we get a self-tape from this person? I really like the vibe I'm getting is so great, and I would just really love to see what she can do. Amazing. I mean, just goes to show you, actors, you know, Instagram can be your friend.
Marketing tools, huh? I guess I was doing something right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, as a character, you know, she carries some of that, like the new Eastern Washington, which is so much different than, you know, a character like Ben in his youth would have encountered. And really, as you say, kind of the soul that he could confide in, and in the first person he can really open up to. Did you have a lot of chance to rehearse with Tom on set or before?
Yeah, I would like take time to run our lines, and beforehand when SJ and I also had a lot of time, and we talked over the whole script and went through the whole thing. So I felt really comfortable when it came to us shooting, that I just had this story in my bones so that we were able to create this magic.
Yeah.
She did a really great job walking me through what her specific vision was. And it's so nice when you have someone that is so specific so that you can also be like, okay, cool, let's make a clear story.
Yeah, and I loved, I mean, I have to say, like, my instinct on Annie was so spot on because we just clicked as actor and director. And what she loved, I loved. What I loved, she loved. And I loved being able to talk things out and flesh out the character and really go to town on this. But I want to say that Annie said this is her first film, but she is on Hentified. She is, I mean, she's not her first rodeo per se.
Yeah, yeah.
Experienced actress, yeah.
Yeah, not my first rodeo.
And some news. Do you want to break the news?
Oh, I just wrapped a pilot yesterday, starring across from Jane Lynch and Nicole Richie and Shannon Woodward. Woo!
Awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
So you mentioned it before, but the character of Eastern Washington, and yet Nick has a question. Where was the movie filmed? I recognize the gorge, which is a good reminder. If y'all have questions, folks watching, go ahead and throw them in the Q&A. That would be terrific. Sebastien, I would love to talk to you about the cinematography, because there's so many, like, Eastern Washington is such a character, and it and you know, filming it with these wide vistas, but also these really intimate spots. I'd love to hear, you know, how you prepped and how you thought about the film.
Yeah, the landscape, and as Jane was saying, that one of the things that kind of drew us to the project was the SJ kind of with Lane, and kind of how we captured the landscape and the environment. And so this was really exciting. But one thing that was hard was this was even bigger. This was, and also this was a different type of character, and how to kind of embrace that, whether we would go with kind of a full screen HD kind of an aspect ratio or more anamorphic. And I felt like the landscape really was such a character that we also wanted Tom to be in it and also away from it at times. Mm-hmm. And that's why I felt like that was the right choice, was well, we all felt like that was the right choice to go with anamorphic. But the one thing that's great about Eastern Washington is no matter where you are, it's going to be beautiful. But we spent so much time. We spent probably, gosh, Jane and SJ, we went on 3 different scouting trips to Eastern Washington, one with David and Jane and SJ, just the 4 of us. And then we went on another one, and then we went on another one. So we really scouted all of the areas to really pick out what we felt would best represent the film. And yeah. Am I missing anything, SJ?
Well, I mean, 100% on your aspect ratio question. Ultimately, we knew that we wanted it to be a cinematic film. You know, I mean, a lot of people are going to watch it on their TVs. Probably everybody did tonight. But we wanted this vast feeling, and we wanted this kind of expansive cinematic feel. We didn't want to cut down the environment. We wanted to open it up and be able to, as you said, Beth, as you noticed, we have these expansive scenes and also these very close-up things. And that's something that Sebastien and I talked a lot about on Lane. And yeah, I mean, I have to say Sebastien was my first and only choice for this because he knew me so well. And we had worked so collaboratively and so strongly on Lane 1974 that we had a little bit of a shorthand. And so he knows what I love. And it's so funny that you say that, because Sebastien, you've heard that a lot, right? From me, like, I want big vistas and landscapes, and then I want but yeah, it's a great partnership, and I feel very lucky to know Sebastien and to work with him.
And can't wait to see it on that screen behind you, Beth, because that's where it's going to look the best.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm 100% on that. the dogfight scene is really hard to watch for lots of reasons, but also, but I'm so curious how you shot that, because that's, I mean, that's a lot of action when a lot of the rest of the film is not that chaotic.
Mhm.
Yeah. The we had worked that scene in trying to figure out exactly how we were going to shoot it before even knowing the logistics of all of the dog handler and how that was going to work, and not being able to have both dogs in the same shot. And so there was a lot of logistics that we had to figure out. And so to kind of, to your point of getting closer was the better choice, getting tighter in on both of the dogs and having the action to the camera versus trying to set up a scenario. And I think the one thing that really helped too was just kind of being more handheld, kind of gave this energy, whereas the rest of the film is very specific at points of when it's handheld, where with Lane, it was, you know, 90% of it was handheld. And so I think that really kind of changed the focus and the tone and the style to help with those scenes, because it is really difficult to have a dog to act towards the camera. And then and Tom really helped with that too. And I think that's one of the things that we were all really impressed and with his physicality and his ability. He was often the person that was least tired, that had the most energy. And him, you know, stomping on, that was one time kicked me in the shoulder. And like this, he was so physical, and that part really helped too with that scene, with the dogfight scene.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about of course, the leading character, which of course was Rex? Like how, like such a beautiful dog, and just you know, how do you find a lead dog?
Yeah, we did a lot of casting for the dog. We found a great trainer. Our trainer, Lauren, was fantastic. And David Guterson had Brittany Spaniels. He loves Brittany Spaniels. And so we started looking for Brittany's and found some, you know, great trained Brittany's, but not realizing when we did that too, that they're very high energy dog. They're not like a lab. They're not going to just sit there. And there were times when Rex needed to look hurt, or, you know, it took us a while to get some of those scenes. But he totally stole some of the scenes too. Like when he, you know, jumps over the back seat, that was such a great shot. And everybody goes, oh, you know, there's actually a audible sigh, you know, or audible, oh, when you first see him jump over the seat. So yeah, he stole the show. Everybody loved Rex.
Yeah.
Ozzy.
Everybody loved the handlers too. I mean, Lauren Henry is just amazing, and she brought such a beautiful energy to the set, and she was into it. She loved being out in the wild, and you know, she was so great with both the dogs, because we had, of course, 2 dogs in that fight. So, but yeah, the dog fight, just back to the dog fight for a second. You know, I was a little nervous going into it. You know, I think we all were, you know, because it's a little unpredictable, and we're shooting at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, I mean, in the most freezing weather, and you know, but it was the scene that I was actually most concerned about when our editor, Eric Frith, asked me, you know, well, what do you want me to put together first? I said, please tell me that the dogfight works.
Yeah.
And I mean, he looked at it and he was like, no problem. It looks great. And I think I have to really, Sebastien was talking about those kicks that Tom gave. And there's a kick that I love so much. And this is where I'm really, really thankful for my karate training, because it's literally a karate kick, and it really sells the kicking the dog, because of course the trainers have, you know, duplicate pants, you know, they're stand-in for Tom kicking at the dog, but of course they're kicking very lamely, you know, gently. They're not really hurting the dog, you know. So when we turned it around and we got Tom's kick, I think it really helps to sell that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it's an incredible scene and a real sort of turning point emotionally in the film. Karen asked, I really appreciated how strong slash tough, and yet kind and compassionate Annie's character was. I wonder if this is how this character was written in the book. And, you know, in terms of taking the book characters into a film, are they straight out of the book, or are they altered in some way to fit more of a vision?
They're altered. I mean, this was, you know, in the book was written 25 years ago, and
Yeah.
you know, this character was a white character to begin with, you know, and she kind of was this girl with big glasses, and she really didn't do much, you know. And so definitely this character was way expanded to create room for a wonderful actress like Annie.
Who brought that sass to it too. That was great. Love that.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of pivotal, and that's interesting because as I was watching it, I thought, well, she is really carrying this sort of, you know, the changing demographics of Eastern Washington, and to know that the book was written 25 years ago when that wouldn't have been the case. And so it's just another testament to, you know, carrying that sort of soul. And I'm curious, you know, as you're sort of looking at moving from Seattle, which is very like insular, and, you know, Ben's life is very like pale and dark, not dark, but just like kind of nothing. And then as you move into Eastern Washington, the muted colors and the expansiveness, does this sort of allow that character to open up to the past, open up to like what he thinks has to happen, but maybe it doesn't?
Well, not to get too, you know, woo-woo about it, but I feel like the land speaks, you know, and the natural world is very important to human beings. And when you put yourself into the natural world, you're going to hear it, you know. And also, what I love is, everybody's seen this film so far, so you know, this won't be any spoilers, but when his car breaks down, he's coming up against that vast yellow mountain. And to me, it felt a little bit like the yellow brick road, you know, like coming into this place that things are going to happen and things are not predictable. You're going to meet new people. They're going to change your life. Things are going to really happen. And, you know, don't forget, he grew up in this place. So the land is really in his bones. And somebody told me that expression comes from when you walk on the land, it literally shapes your bones. So the land is literally in his bones, you know? So I love that feeling. Also, when you go out to these locations, so when you go out into this land, you cannot fail to be awed and remember that these are tribal lands of indigenous people. I mean, this is where people live for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, you know? And yeah, there's something very awe-inspiring about being in that space.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I was watching it, I was thinking about connection, about, you know, what that family connection is, you know, connection across time or grief or expectation and hurts. And you really are able to pull all of those different lines out about, you know, with the flashbacks and with, you know, with finding a connection with Anita, with all of the different things that he left behind, thinking he was going to leave all of it behind.
Right.
Yeah, I realized I didn't actually ask a question in there. But I mean,
but you're right.
I mean, I think
that's how much you loved it, and that's how clear the story was. So that is so awesome that you're able to convey it to us like that.
I mean, it is. it is, it is that really interesting thing. It's because it's about grief and life and how you can pull that out. I did talk about the flashbacks. I would love to hear about shooting those, because those were big, beautiful, like joyous, raucous occasions.
Yeah, I think the 4th of July is one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. It's and as Sebastien and Jane knew, I was really looking forward to shooting it. Then when it came time to shoot it, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so many people, because we've been used to just shooting with Tom or Tom and Annie, but now we had all these people that made up the farm or the town, small town.
And a lot of them were local people too, right? The families of the people from the orchard, and a lot of people in Eastern Washington were in the film. And that scene, particular 4th of July, was a lot of the people from that orchard, that Keystone that we were on, and they make good wine too, just so you know. But it was that was really fun. But yeah, and
I just love looking at their faces, and I love the way they're captured, and I love the joy that they're bringing. And even I believe that they're people from another time. And they really captured that flavor and that essence of that kind of communal feeling. And I grew up communally, so it was really a throwback to me, for me, too. We used to have 4th of July communal celebrations, and it was just so beautiful with the live music. We didn't hear the live music, of course, but they were playing live music, and the dancing and the pies and the bobbing for apples, and just so much kind of joy and life and connectivity and togetherness.
Yeah, and using these, I'm assuming it's part of Ben's journey as he's coming to what he thinks is the end of his life.
Yeah, SJ very much had the vision of, once he goes over to Eastern Washington, these things slowly start coming back to him, right? SJ, as far as the flashbacks and his wife, the memories of his wife coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that she in a way kind of seeps in to collect him, that her spirit is still there, and because he's out here, he's vulnerable, she starts seeping in.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat about young Ben and young Rachel.
Oh yes.
And just, how can you talk about young Ben and young Rachel?
Victoria Summer Felix and Jewel Johnson. What a beautiful couple they made. They were lovely, lovely, lovely to work with. And they understood that there needed to be a connection between them. So they took time to get to know each other, to hang out, to get comfortable with each other. And then they were very open to working with me as well. And, they had to get very close. That love scene was Victoria's first love scene. And that was shot in one take. It was, that scene is not cut. Once they get under the apple tree, that is one take. And it takes a lot of familiarity and being comfortable with your acting partner to be able to pull something off like that so genuinely and so deeply. And my friend Clyde Peterson, who's a filmmaker, texted me today and said, "God damn you, SJ, you made me cry under an apple tree." I had to laugh. But
that was also at the end, SJ, remember, and Sebastien, unbelievably, that was a really long day, and we had done 4th of July as well. And we went up the hill to the orchard to shoot this at the end of a night. And it was a gorgeous night, but we were exhausted. Like, it was late. The actors, I can't believe they did that at the end of the day. And actually, Sebastien, that you were able to get that, because a lot of it was handheld, right? There was a lot of moving, how are you going to get the camera in there? What was that like?
Yeah, we and also just to go to the 4th of July, that what you see, how that time moves as far as the light, that was really how much time we had. We had probably an hour and a half, and the sun was almost already setting. We got just a couple of things, but Daniel Mamura, who's the Steadicam operator, and Cassie, the first AD, they did an amazing job of setting up all of the extras to position them so that created this movement. So all of what seemed to be these kind of, picture moments that we crafted, they came from a lot of planning, but also within 2 or 3 takes. And then we were going up to the tree where we only had really one source of light, which was the lantern, that we supplemented a little bit, but really it was just that lantern that she was holding walking up to the hill. And yeah, it was handheld, getting in close. And we were at the end of the day. You can tell it's the end of the day because how few people are left on set, like close to the camera, because there was probably 7 people. It was Jane, SJ, and our department. It was just the kind of the keys. And I kind of looked over to SJ, and she was like, "I think we got it. I think." And that was that one take, and it was amazing. They rehearsed it quickly. They both were really, really present, and very easy on my end to film. So yeah, it was.
We didn't try any like tricky angles or anything. Sebastian and I just really thought, let's keep the camera simple and have it be all their emotion that carries the scene.
Yeah,
which I think it does.
It absolutely does. There's a great question here from Rob. I love ascending into the mountains to Fleet Foxes. What went into the choice of including that particular song and Northwest Band?
Okay, did you hear the lead-in by Kevin Cole? It's a KEXP podcast.
Oh.
Yes, a little, what do you call it? Easter egg.
A little nod to home, a little Easter egg.
Kevin Cole is amazing, and you may recognize him as his role as teacher Kevin in Lane 1974. So there are certain people that I just asked to come and do a small thing for me, and I love their energy so much. And Kevin Cole is like one of my favorite people. I just love him, and he agreed to kind of help me to curate that particular song and help with some other things. But I asked him if he would do the voice, and he was so excited. He was just like really into it, and it's so great. And it's just like, it's under some dialogue, so it's not like super present, but if you go back and watch it again, you can hear Kevin Cole introducing the Fleet Foxes. And we kind of went around and around, like we wanted to keep all the music in the Northwest musicians. And finally we hit on Fleet Foxes, and we were just like, I wonder if this will work. And Jane made the deal.
And Tomo Nakayama is on there, and several local bands. So we got some great local music.
Yeah. And Philip from Tennis Pro.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, got to support the Northwest. All those great Northwest artists.
Yeah, Tomo Nakayama also had an important song in Lane 1974, and I asked him if I could please use the song of his in this film as well, and he just stepped right up. He's so loving and generous, and just such a kind person. Great artist. I'm very lucky to have his work in both my films.
We have a question here from Michelle about the introduction to Ben's wife, in sort of a dreaming and off-key piano chord, and then the focus on the back pain and wedding ring. Can you talk about how you framed that and how you introduced her to us?
Yeah, we knew that it was written to be that way. that he would fall asleep by the fire and
Mhm.
have this dream kind of come to him. Some subtle things, you know, we have the moon kind of represents her. So you'll see throughout, there's 3 different times that you see very big shot of the moon. And but what you're specifically talking about was a choice that was made in the edit room by Eric Frith, the editor, and he said, "What about this?" You know, I mean, I wasn't thinking, and now we'll see the wedding ring, and now we'll do the, you know, I mean, like,
Yeah.
that was found in the edit.
Well, and it sort of leads to a question also here about the double flashbacks, which were not confusing. They were very well edited. And was that part of the book? Did the book skip around in terms of chapter to chapter, or was that a method to explain his emotional and physical pain?
No, the book did have quite a few flashbacks, quite a few. And I really, you know, that struck me for some reason. It really struck me that he was missing his wife, you know, and really thinking a lot. He thought about how, you know, we had to move everything up 25 years because, you know, he had gone to World War II. We were like, we could squeeze him into Korea, you know?
Yeah.
But in the book, she becomes a nurse, and he goes, and they get married in Italy while on leave, and, you know, I mean, all this like kind of beautiful imagery. And I wanted to see if we could bring that in. But yes, that was in the book. The
Great.
concept was in the book.
A question here from John. The aspects of the film that dealt with aging or end of life or caretaking really resonated. How did you view and want to capture that perspective in the film?
Okay, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but you know, it's unavoidable talking about that in this film. But something that was just very strange, and this happens a lot when you really put your focus into a piece of art. Suddenly life can take various turns, and I'm not saying this piece of art caused this next thing that I'm going to say, but when we went into production, my dad's health started to decline. So I think I was already thinking about my dad's health, but strangely, I turned more and more into the Renee character, because he had to go. My stepmother told me, "Oh, he fainted 3 weeks ago." And I was just like, "What do you mean? Why wouldn't you tell me? What's happening? What's going on?" "Oh, I'm fine. Oh, don't worry about it," you know? And then when we went into production, he had to go into the hospital, and he kind of went in and out of the hospital all during our production until he really was he was on a ventilator, and, you know, and unfortunately he did pass away with 4 days left to shoot. So this I think was very on my heart. It was very in my soul, and very thinking about, you know, my dad and aging, and how is he, like, what is he thinking now? How is this for him with his health declining? And you know, he wasn't quite as reticent as Ben Gibbons, but he did have that kind of sharpness of like, leave me alone, you know? You know, this is life, this is aging, leave me alone.
Go make your film. I remember, because you went back on a couple of the weekends and he said, you need to go make your film.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that energy comes through. It absolutely does. And it's so complex when, you know, when we're children thinking about our parents and our parents making these decisions, and we're like, what are you thinking? And then, but we know deep inside, when we are their age and our children are saying, what are you thinking? You're like, well, this is just how it's going to happen. Like, this is like, it's that cycle. It's, you know, and you see it when he's talking to his brother about how he didn't come back for his dad, and just that that generational trauma of how do you keep that familial connection without it being overbearing, but without ignoring, and it's complicated, and no one gets it right.
Yeah. And how do you redefine it so that you
Yes.
can feel safe? And I think like that's a big part of this story as well, which is so nice.
Yeah,
And
that
how
arc at the
appropriate.
end.
Yeah. And timing, we really thought, because we didn't get to finish the film right away because COVID happened, and we actually did the audio recording. We did all the actors ADR on March 11th last year. And Tom was literally the last day we could have had Tom in the studio, and next day everything shut down. And that was the first time we walked in, and we're starting to do, they had hand sanitizer out, and we're like, what is this? Like sanitizer, we hadn't done any of that. There was no mask wearing yet, or, it started then, but we finally got to finish the film, and we sent a portable audio equipment to Mira's house in the summer to get her ADR. And Annie, you did yours, and
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, there wasn't too much for you to do, Annie.
Yeah. I'm pretty loud. Just I'm pretty clear.
There's a question here about character. Are we to think Ben planned to shoot Rex before he killed himself? There's a lot of worrying about what would happen to Rex.
This is a great question, and this is something we really grappled with. Thane Swaggart and David Guterson and me and Jane, we all talked at length about this, because in the book there are actually 2 dogs, and he brings both dogs out. And we were just like, what? Why would you bring dogs? I mean, I get that you're hunting and you need dogs. And then David just explained to us, because he's a seasoned bird hunter. He doesn't hunt birds anymore, but he used to love bird hunting. And he explained to us that he had a dog who, dogs run. They run far ahead of the hunters. And the dog did not come back. And they whistled for it, and they looked for it, and they looked everywhere for it. They couldn't find it. And finally, they just decided, oh my God, well, we have to go back into town. They went into town. The dog had run back to town. So David felt pretty strongly that it was a no-brainer. These dogs are really smart. They would find their way. And so in the end, we had to accept that, because we needed the dog to go out there. But no, he's not planning to shoot the dog. He's definitely not planning to shoot the dog.
That makes sense. How do you prepare a set and actors when shooting such difficult scenes with guns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have great ADs who, we have safety meetings every morning, and there's always a props person who's in charge. There's usually an armorer. We were a independent, low budget film, so we had a great props person, Jeffrey Crow, who had done a lot of work with guns before. And you have to test the gun, make sure, he rigged it so it didn't ever shoot, and it looked like it shot, and we made the noise and all of that. But there's a lot of safety done beforehand, and then really getting the actor comfortable with the fact that this is, even more than the crew, because the crew is way behind and all of that, but things can go wrong if you actually have a gun that can shoot. So it was introducing Tom to the gun and getting Tom to hold the gun and spend some time with the gun and all of that. And we did that, and he was quite comfortable, taking it apart, putting it back together. And the crew, most of our crew, our crew was very experienced. So they'd been around guns before on other films. But there have been,
just kidding.
Top Gun. There have been accidents on film sets. There have been people shot. And that usually happens when there's multiple guns flying around, and and they're, they have to be well checked all the time. But this gun did not shoot. It was totally taken apart and rigged so it could never cause an accident.
Yeah, I was super concerned about that. I mean, an accident can happen. And Jeffrey Crow was amazing. Cassie, our first AD, was top on safety. I mean, really, there were safety meetings all the time. The armorer let me look at the gun and make sure, showed me there's no bullets here, even though the gun couldn't fire. I mean, we were just very, very careful, because an accident like that, I just could never live with that.
Back.
Yeah.
I was very, very impressed with our stitching of Rex, and people are saying they love that scene, Annie, with you and Tom, and when stitching up Rex, and that we were very concerned about making sure that looked real, and we had 4 or 5 or 6 pieces of the skin with fur on it of different types. And I remember standing there while SJ was picking the color of the blood that would be on the fur, during the surgery and all of that. But it was gory. I mean, we had to decide how gory do we want this to be, because there was a lot of it and it looked great. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, let's use all of it. It's great.
Jane and I were just like, yes. I think we worked so hard, for it, that we were just like, it looks amazing. More stitches. And then other people would watch it and be like, oh God, I can't.
That was my first scene that I got to shoot with you guys when my first day showing up. That was a fun day.
It's just amazing. I love you so much in that scene. You just set the tone for the character. So perfect.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys, I mean, it was a collaborative, beautiful effort with all you guys making me feel safe and giving me the right tools to execute. So thank you.
You are a ray of sunshine, Annie. We loved having you there. It was so great.
I loved being there. Let's make another movie.
Please, let's do it.
You heard it here first.
Annie, have you ever played a vet before?
I haven't. I actually, luckily my neighbor is a vet. So I went and I spent some time with her, and kind of, because I never grew up around animals at all. My mom's allergic to everything. And so we were never allowed to have any animals around at all. So it was fun to kind of get in and do some method work and walk around with her and see that whole process,
Well, I mean, you have to be calm. There has to be a certain amount of chill, because animals react to not chill.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, sort of like a heart surgeon, where you have to be kind of chill, because scared people react to not chill. And so I'm wondering if that is a connection point for both characters. They're just going at it very differently. One, Ben's character is tight fist control, whereas Anita is looser, because it has to flow. Things just have to flow, especially when you're around animals.
Well, I think that's the difference of the nuances in generation, right? And kind of like the old Washington and the new, what you talked about. And I think that is very indicative on a lot of the story, I think, or at least what you were, at least what I could see, and as to what you're saying. And it was really fun to play with him in the room in that scene, especially because of the way it was written and with that banter. It's he's looking at me oh, you're doing this, and I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. We got it. I know I'm younger, I know I'm a woman, I know all of these things, all of this separation, but I'm not gonna let you try and power play this. I'm gonna look at you I see you, I respect you, and you're gonna respect me. Let me fix your dog. And I that's what I loved about it. I loved that was a really beautiful, subtle part of who Anita was, and how she saw herself in relation to Ben. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it really comes out. There are a lot of Eastern Washington natives in the chat and in the questions wanting to know exactly where you shot. So there's some thoughts up here. We have, at times it looked like Coulee City, sometimes Clay Elum, sometimes in the coulee between Soap Lake and Sun Lakes, sometimes the Gorge.
Yeah, Cave B, the gorge, we
Mhm.
really shot out there quite a bit, but we shot primarily around Quincy, Antioch, Peshastin. Kittitas was a big location. I'm surprised nobody picked up on Kittitas because and then further closer to us, we have Sultan and Gold Bar.
Mhm.
And then we also shot in Shoreline, Woodinville, and Everett, and Ballard. So we're kind of,
We drove a lot. I mean, we did.
That's a lot of locations.
well, it's
So we did so much driving. We did some shooting the fall before because it's a fall film, and when we actually shot the film, it was May, June,
Mhm.
and so we did our first fall shooting at the end of 2018. Was it 2018? Yeah, I guess it must have been 2018. Then
Yeah.
shot the film in 2019. Did the post production in 2020. And here we are. But that was, remember Sebastien, it was pouring rain that first day. We went out and we tried to do some drone shooting, but anyway, we got lots of great fall leaves, and we ended up, because we had such a span of time, we ended up doing more fall shooting in the fall of 2019 as well. That really helped tie it all together. And then
Mm.
the magic of color correction and post-production, we were able to match it and make it look like fall all the way through.
Yes, I left out, sorry, actually, Seattle proper, Donna, who's here, we shot in her house. It was Annie's house. It was Anita's house. So thank you, Donna. We love your house.
Yeah, that was a great house.
A very specific question. There's a B. Harden in the credits, but Nick does not recall Ben Harden having any relatives. Did he miss someone, or was that part cut?
Unfortunately, that part played so beautifully by Sharva Maynard, or Maynard, I think she pronounces it, had to be cut. And that was just that, you might as well cut out Jane's heart, and my heart too. It was so hard to do. But once Ben was on his move, we felt that he just had to keep moving, and he couldn't kind of stop to have this just touching, amazing conversation from somebody who remembered him in his past, who is the aunt of Bill Harden.
Mm.
So it was just heartbreaking, but
that was a tough one. That was a
Very
tough
hard.
one.
Yeah.
But there is a character in the film that was not in the book, and that is the brother Aiden.
Well, Aiden was in the book, but he
but
didn't
only
live.
mentioned as a
Yeah,
child or whatever. He was not. We didn't actually see him as an older man, or
right.
have stories about him as an older man in the book.
Right. In the
And,
book, he gets killed in World War II. So.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
Why did you choose to bring him back? Was it for the tension and the clash to keep Ben moving?
We need Thane here, the screenwriter.
Right, of course.
Yeah, that was interesting because Thane, it just came out in one of our meetings. Thane said, what about having the brother come back? And SJ, I remember we just weren't sure about it for a while. You were like, I don't, it might take away from his story. And I love that character. I mean, Wally Dalton played the brother. And just when he walked in, when we saw him at ADR, when we saw him months later in post-production, he was clean shaven and his hair was cut and everything. It was like, whoa, we're so used to that. He actually let it all grow, like the eyebrows and it was just all fuzzy and like he hadn't had his hair cut in years. And it was amazing. He really showed up in that character and it was super fun.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think Thane originally put the meeting very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And we just thought that's too early. I don't know what to do with this character this early, and then when we finally figured out, oh my God, he could be at the end and like, oh, that's it. Then it was a done deal because that writing is so beautiful. And those brothers Wally just kills me in that scene.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like it has to happen, that he has to clash with his past and come to realize that that the future has to be different
Yeah.
than he is envisioning.
Right. He
Yeah.
can't always be the boss. He can't always
No.
do whatever he wants. You know, I mean, I think there's a thing, I guess the man in the room can speak to this, but I think for men, they are expected to know all the answers all the time. And, you know, there is a societal pressure that a lot of men feel. And then it just kind of like gets into this crunchy stoicness that you know, they don't want to accept help from anyone. They don't want to do, you know, and I think that's a shame. And I hope that, you know, at least in this film, somebody who was very entrenched in that way of thinking came to think in a different way. So maybe there's hope for everybody.
There's a couple of questions about funding, and I know this was supported by the Washington Filmworks local lens incentive. How did that help the film get made, and what kind of things do local film incentives do and mean to independent filmmakers?
Yeah, it was
This is
amazing.
across the US.
Yeah, we were able to work with Washington Filmworks, and they had our rebate here, the, you know, Washington State rebate through Washington Filmworks is 30% back on the dollars that you spend in Washington State. And now as producers, we decide where we go to shoot films most of the time based on the incentive, because it helps you make your budget. If you get more money back, you can add that to the budget of the film and get loans on that. So it's a really important piece of the puzzle. So we were really grateful to get the Washington State incentive, and then brought together, this was a very Washington State funded film. You know, we came together, you know, David's book, Tom, you know, Scarrett was involved from the beginning, SJ and Sebastien, and, you know, all the local actors. But we actually had a fundraiser, you know, this is without getting into the long story. We had, that wasn't the only, you know, those weren't the only funds we raised, but we had this great gathering where all of us were there. Tom and SJ, we had our friend Phil playing the cello. We had some great, you know, great local caterer, and all these people came together. And it was the energy of that, I think, in telling the story and talking about the book. And we received most of our funding for the film in that one evening in that fundraiser. But it was a very independently funded film. Steve Hall was our lead executive producer. He did an amazing job just jumping in and being a part of it all the way through. We couldn't have done it without him. Eliza Flug Sheldon was also one of our executive producers, and she was a big push to get this done, and also supported us. And, you know, we actually had over 50% female crew. And Eliza was the one that said to us, you should tell people about that. That's something you should talk about. She put us in touch with King 5, and they did a piece on the film about us having an over 50% female crew. Because in order to do that, you really have to make a concerted effort to bring more women into, you know, all the positions. So it was a total labor of love, and we all jumped in, but a very Washington State film in many, many ways.
Yeah. There's a question about Lynn Shelton. You called her out in the credits. What was her biggest influence on you?
Oh my God, that's
yeah, sorry about that.
Oh my God. The influence is so enormous, and not just on me, but by on the entire filmmaking scene here. Every filmmaker in Seattle, or, you know, at least in Seattle, if not wider, in the Northwest, is influenced by Lynn. I first met her, I think 27 years ago or something. I mean, it was really a long time ago. So I kind of, it was before she made her first film, We Go Way Back. And so I was able to kind of stand next to her and watch her create this whole, almost a new way of working that, you know, I don't want to speak for her, but it kind of led with love. And that's definitely part of my ethos as well. I know it's part of Jane's ethos. I mean, if there isn't love involved, why are we here? You know, I mean, making films is very, very difficult and can be extremely stressful. And if you're not with people that you love and you care about and you're working together, you know, of course there'll be blow-ups or there'll be this and that, but that's to be expected. If your baseline is love, that's the most important thing. And I think that she really worked that way.
Yeah, I would agree. So we only have a couple minutes left. I want to know what the plans are for the future of the film. What do you guys have in store?
This is our, as you know, our world premiere. This is our very first film festival. Last year, we were hoping to finish the film for SIFF last year, and everything got delayed. And of course, SIFF didn't happen last year. Yep. We are starting to look at other film festivals. We have now several distribution offers that we are considering. And so the film will likely come out in the fall, sometime between August and November, hoping to have some kind of theatrical, hoping people will get back to the theater. And because this film really deserves to be seen on the big screen, the landscape, Sebastian's photography, you know, it's you know, contemplative, and the way that SJ created it, it needs to be seen with a group in the theater. So theatrical, and then it'll be out on all the streamers and everything after that later in the year.
Great.
Yeah, we're really, you know, we're so grateful to SIFF. It's such a perfect place to have our world premiere, because this is Washington State, and SIFF is Washington State, and it just all brings it all home, and it brings it all together. So Beth, we're so grateful to you and all your amazing team, and we wish that we could be, you know, in the Egyptian with everybody on stage. We miss all our actors and our crew, and a shout out, a big mwah. I love you guys. I really miss you. I wish that we could all be on stage together, because it does take a huge number of artists coming together and putting their whole hearts into one package, into one film, one art venture. All together, coming together. And so everyone deserves to be on the stage right now and deserves to take a bow.
Let's see what we can do about that in the fall, when cinemas are more open and we all feel more comfortable, potentially sitting next to a complete stranger, which I know none of us have done in a year.
I know.
Which is it's a fascinating feeling.
Yeah.
I want to thank you on behalf of SIFF, the work that happens in this community, and the work that you all do, and the work that a lot of our local filmmaking industry does is incredible, and it's inspiring, and the films are wonderful, but more than that, the community is wonderful, and having the four of you participating in that community and leading that community makes it what it is. So it's a mutual appreciation society, let's call it that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
So as people want to follow along more and tell their friends, because of course, you can view this across the United States, which is great, getting the word out. And of course, you'll do more festivals and in cinemas. How should people keep track of you? Social media wise?
Yeah, we do have a Facebook page, East of the Mountains on Facebook. That's probably the best way. We'll be putting more, posting more in the next while as we lead up to distribution. And that, that right now there's a lot of press, and also Tom's tribute on the 15th. Can't wait for that.
I know, it's really exciting. Awesome. Well, I want to just thank you all, Sebastian, Jane, SJ, Annie. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And thank you for making such an amazing piece of art.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this awesome conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beth.
It's great to see you all. All right.
Too.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.